Oh my god, guys, I did not even know that this figure existed until a couple of days ago when somebody posted about it in one of the action figure groups that I'm in on Facebook. And I did not expect to find this at Walmart so soon, just a couple of days after I found out about it. And it's like, I'm always used to the Atlanta area being like the last place to get action figures. And I'm surprised they were able to keep this under wraps as long as they have. But here it is, Walmart exclusive Mcfarlane Toys Superpowers Green Lantern. How cool is that? Now, we can see that this is the John Stewart version of Green Lantern. And my friend Rudy, Ruse Reviews, check out his channel. If you haven't, he does a lot of snack foods. He does a few action figures. Hopefully he'll do more. But he's a huge fan of Hal Jordan. In fact, Hal Jordan is his favorite superhero of all. I don't know a bigger fan of Hal Jordan than Rudy. And so he was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't Hal Jordan. But I'm going to get into my theory as to why I think Hal Jordan is coming. So just hang tight, Rudy. Your guy's going to get made into a superpowers figure in this line, I'm sure. But they probably just wanted to start with John Stewart because, for one thing, add a little diversity to the line. You know, you got Superman, you got Batman, there are a couple of white guys. Let's get a black guy in there, you know, so that way it's not just a bunch of white guys. I can understand that. I can respect that. That makes sense to me. You know, you want to have some representation in your action figure line. That's cool. And I love John Stewart. I think he's a great character. I don't really have like a favorite Green Lantern, at least out of like the main Green Lantern guys. And in fact, most of the Green Lantern characters I prefer are like the weirder alien sort of Green Lanterns. Like my favorite Green Lantern would probably either be Tomar Ray, who's the guy with the bird beak and the fin on his head. He was actually the Green Lantern of the sector that Krypton would have been in, and felt a lot of guilt at his failure at keeping Krypton from exploding. Or actually, Green Lantern's arch nemesis, Sinestro, who I think is a great character. One of those guys would probably be my favorite Green Lantern. But I do love John Stewart. I was a big fan of his first appearance in the comic book, which is a great comic book illustrated by one of my favorite comic book artists, Neil Adams himself, who created the character. He insisted, Julius Schwartz wanted to introduce a new Green Lantern character into the comic book, and Neil Adams insisted that this new Green Lantern character be a black man. Because, as he put it, you know, you're supposed to select a Green Lantern based on being completely fearless. A Green Lantern is supposed to be completely without fear. So you have Hal Jordan, who's a white guy that that is Green Lantern, and okay, so you fearless guy, white guy, fair enough. You know, that's a guy without fear. Okay, so you pick a second guy to be Green Lantern in Guy Gardner, that was the backup Green Lantern. It's another white guy. Okay, now you're starting to kind of stretch it. So now you're going to introduce a third guy who's completely out here, and that's going to be yet another white guy? Like, come on. Like, we should make him a black guy. Not to be politically correct, but because it makes sense. And, you know, so then you had John Stewart come into it. And there would be occasional stories over the next decade or so where Hal would be incapacitated or for whatever reason, and the Ring would go and seek out John Stewart, so he would be like the emergency backup Green Lantern. But eventually, Hal decided to quit being Green Lantern for, you know, reasons I'm not going to get into right now. If you want to know, go back and read those old comics. And John Stewart stepped up and became the new permanent Green Lantern for a few years. And then they did the Green Lantern Corps storyline, and him and Hal and Guy Gardner were all Green Lanterns at the same time, and the Corps was based out of Earth, and a lot of the alien Green Lanterns moved here. So that's pretty much how that story went. John Stewart appeared in the Cosmic Odyssey miniseries, in which he was accidentally responsible for the death of an entire planet and felt a lot of guilt about that, and even almost killed himself at the end of the story before John Jones stopped him. And then they did a series called Green Lantern Mosaic, in which he was the main character in that, where they had the Mosaic world, which had various alien civilizations all collected on it. And then they introduced Kyle Rayner and decided he could be the only Green Lantern, so they made John Stewart into a Dark Star. But, funny thing happened, is Bruce Timm made a little show called Justice League, the animated Justice League series. Maybe you've heard of it. Followed up by Justice League Unlimited. Probably one of my favorite superhero cartoons of all time. And when it came time to select a Green Lantern to be a member of the Justice League, he chose John Stewart. Not only because John Stewart just happened to be his favorite Green Lantern character, but also, again, to add some diversity to the lineup. Because, he didn't want it just to be a bunch of white guys. So we got John Stewart as Green Lantern on that. So that made John Stewart the most prominent Green Lantern to, an entire generation of kids growing up watching this cartoon. And they had to bring him back as a Green Lantern in the comic book then, didn't they? And then when they did Green Lantern Rebirth, then they, had the whole core back, basically. So John Stewart, Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner, Hal Jordan, these guys were all Green Lanterns now. And Hal was the main one in the comic books, and I believe still is, but that doesn't mean that John Stewart doesn't have a prominent role and doesn't show up a lot. And I've spent a lot of time talking about the history of this character, when really I should just be talking about the action figure, so hopefully you stuck with me. But, I like talking about comic books and comic book history too. So let's have a look at the package, and we can see that it's the packaging trade dress that we're used to, that we've already seen in the Batman review, if you watched that. But one key difference here is that Green Lantern has been added to the cross-cell artwork on the back. And they were able to keep this guy in a wrap so long. I kind of wonder if they got any more secret figures coming out and what the next one will be. I'm really excited about this line. And the fact that they kept John Stewart under wraps for as long as they did, to the point where, I literally found him in the store just a couple of days after I found out that the figure even existed. Not searching for him for months, like I have with the other Superpowers figures. Just walking to Walmart one day, bam, there it is. I wasn't even looking for Green Lantern at this point, because I didn't think there was any hope in me finding Green Lantern at this point. I was just happy to find Batman, and then I found this guy, and I was ecstatic. So I've been talking about it for 8 minutes now. Let's go ahead and read the bio real quick so we can get into opening the actual figure. Okay, so Green Lantern. John Stewart is a former U.S. Marine who uses his military training and discipline to protect Earth and the rest of Space Sector 2814 as a member of the intergalactic peacekeeping force known as the Green Lantern Corps. As Green Lantern, John wields a power ring, which creates a protective shield around him, allows him to fly, and generates hard light energy constructs in the form of anything he imagines. Fueled by willpower, Green Lantern's power ring is one of the mightiest weapons in the universe. So yeah, let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and open them up. I'm really excited about this figure, and I'm really excited about the potential of a Hal Jordan figure. Again, I'm going to get into that in just a second. So Green Lantern comes with one accessory, and it's the one accessory that you absolutely would want to have with a Green Lantern figure, and that's his power battery. Now, it would be cool if he came with actually some energy constructs or something like that, but remember, this is a Superpowers figure. This is supposed to be an 80s style action figure. We didn't get that fancy with it back then. We just pretended. We just imagined the Green Lantern stuff. Maybe if we were lucky, our mom had green dish gloves, and we could put one of those on and pretend like that was a giant green fist or whatever. Or you found something else in your toy box that was green, like a toy dinosaur. So you made a dinosaur with this power ring or something like that. But power battery is an absolutely necessary accessory for any Green Lantern figure. Every Green Lantern figure should come with one. Unfortunately, not every Green Lantern figure does come with one, but they should. And then John Stewart himself, not held in with any plastic tabs, just came out of the package. Beautiful. This is the way it ought to be. Because I don't need to cut through any plastic tabs. I just rip them out of the box, and we're done with it. So let's have a look at the sculpting of Green Lantern. And as we can see, fairly simple 1980s style action figure sculpt. I do want to point something out. Let's look at Superman again. While Superman and Batman had abs that were pretty much identical, you can see that Green Lantern's abs are sculpted slightly differently. And this brings us to something that I really liked about the original Green Lantern figure, is that in the original Superpowers line, is that one had anatomy that seemed to me like it was sculpted to be closer to how Gil Kane drew superhero anatomy. So it looked very much like how Gil Kane drew Green Lantern. Gil Kane being the guy who designed Hal Jordan in the first place, and in my opinion, the quintessential Green Lantern artist. And I already mentioned how that Neil Adams drew Green Lantern. So if there's a guy that I like his Green Lantern more than Neil Adams, yeah, you know he's good. So, and of course he has the power ring sculpted in there, actually sculpted onto the hand. And if I look closely at it, you know, it doesn't have a whole lot of detail to the sculpt. But again, it's a 1980s style figure, so we're lucky to have the ring sculpted on there at all. And I love this head sculpt. It's got a lot of character to it, especially for like a 1980s style design. But he's got like a real tough look to the face. You know, they mention him being a former Marine on the back of the package. Although once a Marine, always a Marine. So, but I thought that was kind of interesting because that actually came from the animated series. He wasn't a Marine when he was originally introduced in the comic book. He was an architect. But, you know, it became such a part of his character on the animated series, they just had to put it into the comic book. So, Green Lantern traditionally has always had a very simple costume. But we can see that they did sculpt in the top of the boots, and they did sculpt in the top of the gloves. But they did not sculpt in where the cuff meets the wrist here, which is very interesting. It's almost like they sculpted this so that it could be a solid glove, a solid white glove. Oh, is that the thing that Alan was hinting at through this whole episode? Is Alan trying to hint that they're going to reuse this body to make Hal Jordan? Oh, look, I noticed something else. They actually sculpted in the trunk line at the where the hip meets the thigh. That's funny, because John Stewart doesn't have trunks. Why would they go through all the trouble of sculpting in trunks to a character that doesn't have trunks? Ooh, play the X-Files theme for me real quick, because we got a conspiracy. Yes, I am suggesting that they are going to reuse this body and make a Hal Jordan action figure at some point in the future. It seems like it'd be a really easy repaint of this body. All they'd have to do is give him a different head. So yeah, I think that Hal Jordan is coming. So if you're like my friend Rudy and you're disappointed that Hal hasn't made it into the line yet, don't fret. I'm sure he's coming. So let's go ahead and put the power battery into his hand. And you can see that the hand is sculpted in such a way where he can hold it out in front of him. See how it's tilted at this angle, whereas opposed to most superpowers figures are held at this angle. So the original Green Lantern figure, the Hal Jordan from the 80s Superpowers line, he had a cool action figure where you could squeeze his legs and it would raise his ring hand, which is what you would want Green Lantern. Again, that ideally would be his power action with something like that. So yeah, it's really cool that they had his hand sculpted in the same way, where he could hold the lantern out in front of him. So that way, also, you could squeeze the legs and pretend like he's raising his fist to charge his ring at his lantern. So, all right, everybody, we're gonna do this, and it might be corny as hell, but you know the words. I want you to say them with me. Let's all say them together as we recite the Green Lantern Oath. In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. Ah, yeah. Now he's got his ring charged up. He's got a full 24 hours of energy. He's ready to go out there and kick some supervillain ass. Yeah, I am psyched about this figure. This was a really nice surprise. This whole line was a nice surprise. It also just got released fairly quickly, but Green Lantern coming out as quickly as it did, that was a really nice surprise. So far I have 3 of these superheroes in my collection, because I have Green Lantern, I have Superman, and even though he's actually in his Batwing right now, I do have Batman. So we're off to a good start. Now, unfortunately, only one villain so far, and it's Darkseid, and it's that new 52 design of Darkseid. I didn't buy him yet. I will buy him because, like I said, I want to support this line, but I'm not crazy about that design. So we'll see when I get the figure in my hands how I feel about it. But I can say this, Green Lantern, I am super excited about, and I love this figure. I think that this is an almost perfect interpretation of John Stewart into the superpowers style. Now, granted, if they'd actually made John Stewart at the time, he would have been wearing this costume. He would have actually been wearing the same costume that Hal Jordan had, and he would not have had the high and tight marine haircut. He would have had, kind of a shorter afro type haircut, not particularly long, but like the way most black men would have kept their hair in the late early 70s to early 80s. That would have been the look that most black men would have had. But I don't mind it. They're using the more modern, more iconic at this point, more recognizable design of the character, as most of us are familiar with from the Justice League animated series, and it was popular enough they moved this costume into the comics. Now it is the comic book version as opposed to the animated version. We can tell because he's got the bare flesh hands instead of the gloved hands. My one criticism that I have about John Stewart is on the animated series, he actually had glowy green eyes. That I liked that because it showed how like the power was kind of incorporated into him at this point. And you can tell they just gave him kind of simple black eyes, and it doesn't look bad. But I do wish they'd have given him those green eyes. I think that would have looked really cool. And I might go ahead and repaint mine to have green eyes because it'll just be a simple dab of the toothpick in some green paint. And I think it'll be worth it. I think it'll look really cool. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and all the YouTube stuff down below. Let's talk about John Stewart and Green Lantern in general in the comments and what you think about this figure, what you think about the original Superpowers figure. Do you think I'm right in my conspiracy theory that Hal Jordan will be coming on the way? Or am I just having some wishful thinking? Honestly, I want as many superheroes as I can get in this line. I want every character that was in the original line and then some. They should have put out John Stewart in the 80s, and they should definitely put out Hal Jordan now. All right, that's it for this episode. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.